Hi, this is Chris Ruspe. I'm coming to you from the countryside in Maryland. It's a beautiful fall day here, and TGIF, thank God it's Friday. Today we're going to be talking about passive income. It seems like you can't turn around on social media these days and see somebody pumping the idea of passive income. And when I see this as a 30-year veteran of the financial industry, I think to myself, it's one of three things. When you hear these type of posts, it's either number one, the best case scenario is it's probably being over hyped. The second best outcome would be that it's based on unreasonable expectations, and the third best scenario is actually the worst scenario, which is that it's an out and out fraud. So let's dive into passive income here for a minute. First off, passive income is frequently thought of as income that you earn from your investments where you don't have to do anything as far as earning active wages. Traditionally, passive income came from owning stocks that paid dividends or owning real estate that paid dividends. And it's certainly a legitimate investing strategy that has been used for hundreds of years by the wealthiest people to supplement basically their income, which they don't have to work for income, so they can just live off of their passive income. But these are people with large sums of money, and the average person on YouTube doesn't have any money. So let's talk about the best case scenario. If you're watching YouTube or you're watching one of the other channels and you're seeing a video or seeing content about passive income, the best case scenario is that it's probably being overrated. And what I mean by that is there's probably no fraud involved in something like that. It's just hyping you up to think that you're going to get somewhere a lot faster than you will. Because passive income is usually a slow growth strategy. It's, collect your 2 to 3% dividends, maybe 3 to 4% dividends, reinvest them. Hopefully the asset will continue to appreciate, and you just do that endlessly for 20 or 30 years, and you end up with a significant appreciation. But it's not a get-rich-quick idea typically. There's three things I think would cause me to feel like it's overrated at this time. The first thing is that the dividend yield of the S&P 500 is, depending on the day you watch this video, either at or near record lows. And so what that means is that the average stock in the S&P 500 is paying a very small dividend, below 2%. And so you have to ask yourself, if I'm going to invest in something and I'm going to take the risk of losing my principal, is it really worth collecting a 2% dividend at these extremely high risk levels that we're at? Now, of course, you also potentially see appreciation in the stock price in addition to the dividend. So that's one concern I have. The second concern I have is if you're looking for passive income in the form of bond investments or fixed income investments, we just came out of the lowest interest rates we've had in 50 years, which were basically zero when you factored in inflation. They were actually below zero. And so as a result, bond rates are historically low. They have come up a little bit, but they're still very, very low. It's not uncommon to make 0.2% in a money market, 0.4% in a short-term high-grade bond fund. So you have to ask yourself, is that a strategy for getting rich quick? And the answer is probably not. And then the last thing that makes me concerned about the bond market is the fact that we are in an inflationary environment. I don't think there's any way that you can determine otherwise. And during periods of inflation, that usually leads to interest rate sensitive investments performing poorly. And you want to guess what an interest rate sensitive investment is? It's typically passive income investments. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule. There are a lot of other things that go into play there, but certainly an inflationary environment is very challenging for passive income. It depends on where the passive income is coming from. So that's your best case scenario. This is a slow wealth accumulation strategy. It would take an enormous amount of money for you to generate significant amount of income. I would say that you would need about $1 million to generate about 3% income right now, depending on a number of factors, how much risk you're willing to take, if you're willing to dip into your principal, etc. But $1 million to generate $30,000 a year income. And like I said, if you're reinvesting the dividends, certainly if it's a good company, one day, 10, 20 years from now, you may have an asset worth a lot of money, but it does take time. So that's your best case scenario. Your middle case scenario, which I call your second best case scenario, is that you're being told things are going to go well based on unreasonable expectations. And the thing I hear the most these days is people looking at the performance of the stock market over the last year, or the performance of the stock market over the last 2 years, and thinking in some way that this is typical. What we're going through is a historical, unique event. And most of us, God willing, will never see another COVID event in our life. So the fact that the stock market and many stocks are up over 50% in the last 12 months is not typical and is not something you will likely ever see again in your life. And so to assume that you can buy some dividend-paying stocks and get a 1.5% dividend, but the stock is going to double every year, and that this is your passive income strategy, is really based on faulty assumptions. And then the worst case scenario is that you're actually getting hit up by a scamster. And if you type in passive income into Google right now, you get a couple of things that come up. How to make $783 a day, how to make $27,000 a week, passive income for beginners from a guy who looks like he's barely out of high school to make $100 a day, and 30 passive ideas for income and beyond. So these are just the top 4 hits in Google. And when you go over to social media, I won't mention the platform because I'm not picking on any one. You get a lot of the same type of people. $716,000 of dividends, $6,400 a month of passive income, yada, yada, yada. So again, what I would say to you is, if it sounds too good to be true, it is too good to be true. If the yield that they're quoting you is dramatically above the yields that other financial products are offering you, it's probably a scam, okay? So look at the environment that we're in, and if, most bonds are paying 0.5% or 1% or 1.5%, and somebody offers you 5%, you know that that's too good to be true. Now, there was a time in history where you could have made 5%, but it's not right now. So one of the things is, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. The second thing is, look very carefully at the post. If there are no disclosures, okay, and no disclaimers, and there's no regulatory authority cited, the person is not a professional. They're an amateur, and they're hiding behind freedom of speech. Remember, anybody can say anything if they're not a professional. It doesn't make it true. It can be hidden under freedom of speech. So this is a pet peeve I have, is that licensed people like me, we're required to put out fair and balanced content, which means that we're not going to be putting out those type of posts because they're completely frauds. So it just means that it's easier for average people to fall prey to these scams because the legitimate professionals aren't out there making their own enticing opportunity ads, because we're not really allowed to. So yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up the topic of passive income. Don't give up on the idea. It certainly is a legitimate strategy when you talk about real estate, if you can buy the real estate affordably. It certainly is a legitimate strategy if you can do dividend reinvestment on high quality stocks. But again, it's not going to get you rich quick. And if you are talking to somebody that's implying that, then you probably don't want to do business with them. So that's my tip for the week. Hopefully it's worth more than I charged for it, which was nothing. And I'd ask you to like my channel and follow me so that you can get future content as it's released. Or you can check my website for all videos as well as all legal disclosures and disclaimers at appliedfinancialwisdom.com. I wish you a great weekend.